Chelsea's most important signing this summer just scored a goal without even touching the ball. Sounds strange, right? Let me explain. After Chelsea's final preseason game against Real Sociedad, the argument for Xabi Alonso being the club's most important addition has actually become stronger. Chelsea won 3-1. Morgan Rogers scored on his debut. João Pedro scored twice. The attack looked dangerous, but underneath all of that, there was something much more important beginning to take shape, and that could be the biggest story of all. Before this game, there were still plenty of questions. Chelsea had just come through a chaotic pre-season. The 6-4 win against Western Sydney showed enormous attacking potential, but also defensive problems. The 3-3 draw against Johor Darul Ta'zim raised even more questions about game management and defensive discipline. Alonso himself admitted after that match that Chelsea needed to become better at managing difficult moments and finding solutions when opponents changed the way they pressed. So, Real Sociedad was important. This was the final test, and this time Chelsea looked much more controlled. From the beginning, Chelsea attacked with purpose. João Pedro came close early, then his header was saved, and Morgan Rogers was in the right place to react to the rebound. 9 minutes into his Chelsea debut, Rogers had his first goal. And suddenly you could see why Alonso wanted this kind of attacking player. Rogers wasn't simply standing around waiting for the ball. He was moving, he was connecting, he was arriving in dangerous areas. And that matters. Because Alonso has already explained the principle behind his football. He wants his attacking players to have freedom, but freedom inside a structure. Of course, it wasn't perfect. Real Sociedad found Chelsea's weakness before half-time. Chelsea's defensive structure was exposed, and Jean Aramburu produced an excellent finish to make it 1-1. Chelsea's defensive positioning still needs to improve, and this is important. We are not trying to pretend Alonso has already solved Chelsea. He hasn't. There are still problems. But look at what happened next. Chelsea came out for the second half and took control again. João Pedro put them back in front after a move involving Reece James. Then, later in the game, Malo Gusto helped create the third. João Pedro finished it 3-1, a much more convincing ending to pre-season. Chelsea's own match report highlighted the attacking connection and the way Alonso's team finished the game strongly. And that's where the bigger story begins. Alonso isn't Chelsea's most important signing because he can pick the right 11. He's important because he can change the value of everyone else. Think about Morgan Rogers. A £117 million signing scoring on his debut is obviously going to dominate the headlines. But what happens if Alonso can turn Rogers from an exciting individual into a consistent part of a functioning system? What happens if João Pedro's movement becomes even more dangerous because the players around him understand where to be? What happens if Chelsea's young players stop having to solve every problem individually? That's where Alonso's real value starts to appear. For Alonso, this wasn't just another friendly. It was his first home game as Chelsea manager. And after the match, he described the experience as emotional. He also spoke about building a connection between Chelsea and the supporters. That part matters, because when Alonso first arrived, he talked about creating a football idea, bringing excitement to Stamford Bridge, and building a bond with the fans. Now, after the final pre-season game, you could finally see the beginning of that idea on the pitch. Not perfection, not yet, but a direction. Chelsea don't need another manager who simply gets 11 talented players onto a football pitch. They need someone who can make those players understand each other. And after Real Sociedad, we're starting to see that possibility. That's why Xabi Alonso could be Chelsea's most important signing. A player can change a position. Alonso can change the entire environment around that player. And if he gets this right, Chelsea's biggest transformation won't be the name on the back of the shirt. It will be the identity of the team wearing it. Pre-season is over. Now let's find out whether Xabi Alonso's Chelsea is ready for the real deal.